There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when a person decides whether you are prey or predator. It doesn't happen in a boardroom. It doesn't happen during a negotiation. It happens the instant you open your mouth and say something you should have kept buried. Throughout history, the men and women who accumulated real power, the strategists, the monarchs, the quiet billionaires, the generals who never lost a war, shared one trait that had nothing to do with intelligence, charm, or luck. They understood that power is not built by what you show. It is built by what you conceal. Every piece of information you hand to another person is a weapon you have manufactured and placed, gift-wrapped, into their hands. They may not use it today. They may not even know they'll use it. But one day, when it benefits them and costs you, they will. This is not paranoia. This is the oldest law of human interaction. The person who reveals less controls more. In the chapters ahead, you will learn 7 things that the powerful never expose, not to friends, not to family, not even at times to themselves. Ignore these rules and you will spend your life explaining, justifying, and losing ground you didn't know you were giving away. Follow them, and you will notice something strange begin to happen. People will start asking about you more than you ask about them. They will fill your silence with their own anxiety. They will hand you power simply because you never gave them a reason to take it from you. Let's begin. Somewhere in your life, someone convinced you that vulnerability is strength, that opening up, confessing your fears, showing your scars, will draw people closer and make them trust you. This is one of the most expensive lies you will ever believe. Vulnerability has its place, but that place is earned, tested, and rare. It is not the opening move. It is the reward you give to someone after years of proving they deserve it. Hand it out too early to too many people, and you are not building intimacy. You are building a map that shows exactly where to strike you when the moment calls for it. Think about how negotiations actually work. Think about how office politics actually work. Think about how a divorce, a business partnership gone wrong, or a friendship that turned into rivalry actually plays out. In every one of these situations, the person who wins is not the one who was most honest. It is the one who understood long before the conflict began which cards to keep face down. When you tell a colleague, honestly, I'm terrified I'm going to get replaced, you think you're building camaraderie. What you've actually done is hand them a private fear they can quietly repeat in a meeting you're not in, not even maliciously, just carelessly, the way people talk. Now your anxiety is public currency spent by someone else for a price you'll never see. When you tell a new partner every wound from your last relationship, every insecurity, every place you're sensitive, every button that can be pushed, you believe you're creating closeness, but you have just handed them an instruction manual. Most people will never use it, but you don't build your defenses around most people. You build them around the one person, someday, who will. This is the part where the ego resists. But that's cynical. That's not how real relationships work. And to that, the answer is simple. Real relationships are built on demonstrated trust, not declared trust. Trust is not something you announce by confessing your soft spots. Trust is something you prove over years through consistency, through action, through the slow accumulation of evidence that a person will not use what they know against you. Until that evidence exists, and even often after it does, your weaknesses stay yours. Your insecurities stay yours. The thing that keeps you up at night stays yours, not because you are cold, but because you understand a basic truth about human nature. People do not remember your strength as vividly as they remember your softness. And softness, once seen, is never forgotten by the mind of someone who later needs leverage. There is also a second, subtler danger, the danger of revealing weakness to yourself out loud, in front of others, before you've processed it. When you narrate your doubts in real time, I don't know if I can pull this off. I'm not sure I'm good enough for this role. You are not just informing others. You are training your own identity to believe it. Words spoken repeatedly become beliefs. Beliefs become behavior. The most dangerous weakness is not the one someone discovers about you. It is the one you talk yourself into. So what does mastery of this law actually look like in daily life? It looks like absorbing a setback quietly, processing it privately with a journal, a trusted mentor bound by real loyalty, or simply in your own mind, and only presenting the resolved version of yourself to the wider world. Not the panic, not the doubt. The decision, it looks like answering, how are you handling everything? With calm, brief confidence. Not because you're lying, but because your internal chaos is not public property. It looks like understanding that even your closest allies do not need a live feed of every fear that crosses your mind. They need your steadiness. That steadiness is what they will remember, rely on, and respect, long after they've forgotten whatever passing anxiety you were tempted to share. History's most formidable figures were not without fear. They were simply disciplined about where fear was allowed to live. Fear lived in private rooms, in late-night reflection, in the counsel of the one or two people whose loyalty had already been tested by fire. It never lived on the surface in the daily transactions of ordinary life, where anyone, friend, rival, or stranger, could pick it up and carry it away. This is not about becoming a fortress with no windows. It's about choosing deliberately who gets a key, and making sure that decision is based on evidence, not emotion, not the temporary comfort of unburdening yourself to whoever happens to be listening. Because here is the uncomfortable truth beneath all of this. The world is not organized around your comfort. It is organized around advantage. And every weakness you expose, no matter how innocently, becomes a small piece of advantage sitting in someone else's hand, waiting patiently for the day it might be useful. Guard it, not out of fear of others, but out of respect for what you are still building. There is a particular kind of person who announces every plan before it's finished. The new business idea, the plan to leave a job, the intention to end a relationship, the strategy to finally get ahead. They mistake talking about the future for building it. But intentions spoken too early do not manifest into reality. They manifest into resistance. The moment you reveal what you're truly aiming for, you invite three forces into motion, almost instantly, almost invisibly: competition, sabotage, and premature judgment. None of these forces care about your feelings. They simply respond to information, the way water responds to a crack in a dam. They flow toward the opening you created. Consider competition first. The instant you tell colleagues you're aiming for a promotion, you have just told every person in that room exactly what to quietly maneuver against. You didn't announce a goal, you announced a target on your own back. People who were neutral toward your success become, without even fully realizing it, invested in seeing it delayed. Not because they're villains, because self-interest is the default operating system of every human being, including the pleasant ones. Consider sabotage next. Not dramatic, cartoonish sabotage, but the quiet kind. A word dropped in the wrong meeting, a slight delay on a task they know you're depending on, an enthusiastic, "Oh, are you sure you're ready for that?" said in front of the very people whose opinion matters most. This is not always conscious cruelty. Often it is simple, unexamined self-preservation. But the outcome is identical either way. Your revealed intention becomes a target others quietly deflect, whether they mean to or not. And finally, premature judgment, perhaps the most corrosive of the three. The moment people know your goal, they begin measuring your every move against it, long before you've had the chance to develop, adjust, or fail forward the way real growth demands. Every stumble becomes proof to them that you were all talk. Every pause becomes evidence you've given up. You are no longer allowed to evolve privately. You are now a spectacle being narrated by an audience who never agreed to root for you. This is why every serious strategist throughout history, in war, in business, in politics, operated by the same unspoken rule: let your actions announce your intentions after the fact, never before. A plan spoken aloud before it's executed is a plan half defeated. A plan executed quietly, then revealed only through its results, is a plan that cannot be stopped. Because by the time anyone understands what you are building, it already exists. Think about how this plays out practically. The person who says nothing about leaving their job, but quietly builds skills, quietly builds savings, quietly builds a network on the side, and then one day simply announces their departure, walks away with leverage intact. The person who announces 6 months early that they're thinking about leaving spends 6 months being subtly deprioritized, quietly excluded from future plans, and treated as a short-timer whose loyalty is now in question. Same destination, wildly different journey, determined entirely by when the intention was revealed, or consider negotiations of any kind. Salary, business deals, even personal ones. The party that reveals its true ceiling, its true urgency, its true bottom line, has just given away its only real advantage: uncertainty. Uncertainty is not a weakness in strategy. It is often the entire strategy. The moment the other side knows exactly what you want and exactly how badly you want it, they no longer need to negotiate. They simply need to wait you out. This does not mean living a life of secrecy and paranoia, trusting no one, sharing nothing. It means understanding a simple distinction. There is a difference between your values, which can be spoken freely, because they invite respect, and your specific tactical intentions, which should be protected because they invite interference. You can tell the world you value growth. You do not need to tell the world exactly which company you're quietly interviewing with. You can tell people you believe in building something meaningful. You do not need to tell them the exact date you plan to launch, the exact investors you're courting, or the exact weaknesses in your plan that you're still working to solve. Silence in this context is not deception. It is protection of the unfinished. Nothing valuable is born fully formed. Everything worth building goes through an ugly, uncertain, half-broken middle stage, and that stage should never be performed in public. Let people see the beginning if you must. Let them see the end when it's undeniable. But the middle, the part where you are most exposed, most fragile, most capable of being talked out of your own ambition by well-meaning doubters, belongs to you alone. The powerful are not powerful because they hide everything. They are powerful because they have mastered timing, the art of knowing exactly when concealment becomes revelation, and making sure that moment is chosen by them, not extracted from them by the curiosity of everyone else. Every person who has ever built something of value has an origin story, a source. It might be a skill, a relationship, a piece of information, a method, a resource, a network. And almost universally, the greatest error people make is explaining in generous detail exactly how they built it. Ask a genuinely successful person what they do and watch closely. The truly strategic ones will answer in broad strokes. They'll talk about hard work, about persistence, about just staying consistent. What they will almost never do is hand you their actual blueprint. The specific relationships they leveraged, the specific gap in the market they exploited, the specific mentor whose introductions changed everything, the specific piece of insider knowledge that gave them an edge before anyone else caught on. This is not arrogance, it is preservation. Here's the uncomfortable mechanism at play. Every advantage you have exists because most people don't have it. The moment you explain it clearly enough for others to replicate, you haven't inspired them. You've equipped your future competition. You've taken the very thing that separated you from the crowd and mass-produced it for free simply because someone asked a casual question and you answered honestly out of habit or pride. Think about it in the context of business. A small company discovers an unusually efficient supplier, a unique distribution channel, a clever loophole in how an industry operates. If the founder brags about this openly in interviews on podcasts, at industry dinners, competitors don't need years of trial and error to catch up. They simply copy the shortcut that took the original founder years of failure and refinement to discover. The advantage, once explained, has an expiration date measured in months, sometimes weeks. The same law governs personal relationships and social capital. If you tell everyone exactly how you built your most valuable connections, which events, which introductions, which specific favors were exchanged, you are not being generous. You are training the people around you to walk the exact same path, diluting the very scarcity that made your position valuable in the first place. Power built on access erodes the instant that access becomes common knowledge. There is also a more dangerous layer to this. Revealing your source of power often reveals your source of vulnerability simultaneously. If your influence depends on one key relationship, announcing that fact tells everyone exactly which relationship to target, undermine, or poach in order to weaken you. If your income depends on one method, one client, one platform, one skill, broadcasting that openly hands anyone with bad intentions a precise map of where to apply pressure if they ever wanted to see you fall. This is why the truly powerful speak about their success in principles, never in mechanisms. They will tell you to work hard and build real relationships. True, but vague enough to be useless to a copier. They will not tell you the name of the specific person who opened the door that changed everything, the specific timing that let them buy low before a market moved, or the specific vulnerability in a system they exploited before everyone else noticed it. Some will call this secrecy ungenerous. It is not. Generosity is teaching principles, mindset, discipline, resilience, how to think. Those can be given away freely because they require the recipient to do the actual work of applying them. And most people, if we're honest, will not do that work regardless of how much you explain it. What should never be given away freely are the specific mechanisms, the exact keys that required your specific sacrifice, timing, and risk to acquire, and that can be used by someone else to bypass all of that effort and simply take your place. There is a reason master craftsmen throughout history, from swordsmiths to spice traders to modern founders, protected their exact processes even while training apprentices. Teaching how to think about the craft builds tradition. Teaching the exact formula builds a replacement. So when someone asks you, with apparent innocence, how exactly did you pull that off? Pause before answering in full. Ask yourself, am I about to hand this person a genuine gift of wisdom, or am I about to hand them the one specific tool that took me years to forge, for free, simply because refusing felt impolite? The source of your power is not owed to anyone. It was earned. Protect it the way you would protect anything else you built with your own hands. In every environment where people compete for position, a company, a family, a social circle, a political landscape, there exists an invisible map of alliances, and the single most valuable, most dangerous piece of information on that entire map is this: who trusts whom completely? Most people treat this information carelessly. They openly declare their closest allies, "She's my ride or die. He's the only one I really trust here. I tell them everything." This feels natural. Loyalty, after all, seems like something worth announcing. But announcing it does something you don't intend. It hands every rival, competitor, and quiet strategist around you the exact coordinates of your support system, and by extension, exactly who to isolate, discredit, or turn against you if they ever needed to weaken your position. Here is the principle beneath this law. Your alliances are only as strong as their invisibility. The instant your closest bond becomes public knowledge, it becomes a target rather than a resource. Someone who wants to undermine you no longer has to attack you directly, a difficult, obvious, risky move. Instead, they can quietly work on the person you trust most, plant doubt, create distance, exploit a disagreement, or simply outmaneuver them in a way that removes your support without ever touching you. This plays out constantly in almost every arena of life. In office politics, the employee who openly declares an alliance with a powerful mentor often finds that alliance becomes the first thing a rival tries to disrupt, through manufactured conflict, through subtle competition for that mentor's attention, through quiet campaigns to make the mentor question their own judgment. The alliance that would have remained an unshakable, quiet asset becomes, once revealed, a battlefield. In families, the sibling who is openly declared the favorite, or who openly declares one parent as their true confidant, often becomes the target of resentment, exclusion, or manipulation from other family members trying to shift that balance. What could have remained a private source of strength becomes, once spoken aloud, a public wound others learn to press. Even in friendships and romantic relationships, the pattern holds. The couple that broadcasts every detail of their private trust, their inside conversations, their disagreements, their vulnerabilities to each other, to friends, to social media, to extended family, gives outside parties an opening to interfere, to offer unsolicited opinions, to slowly chip away at a bond that thrived specifically because it was protected from outside noise. This does not mean living without real trust. It means understanding that trust and its public display are two entirely separate things, and confusing them is one of the most common costly mistakes people make. You can trust someone completely, rely on them fully, share your true thoughts with them privately, while to the outside world, maintaining a composed, measured, diplomatic distance that reveals nothing about the depth of that bond. This is not deception between you and the person you trust. It is protection for that person and for the relationship itself. The less visible your closest alliance is to outsiders, the less exposed it is to interference, jealousy, manipulation, or attack. A bond that no one knows exists cannot be targeted, tested, or turned against you by anyone clever enough to try. There is a further layer worth understanding. Revealing who you trust also reveals, by omission, who you don't, and that creates its own quiet damage. People who sense they are not part of your inner circle, once that circle is made visible, often respond not with respect but with resentment, distancing themselves preemptively or working against you out of wounded pride. Keeping the boundaries of trust private prevents this entirely unnecessary friction. People who don't know exactly where they stand tend to behave better, try harder, and stay more engaged than people who've been openly told, in effect, you are not one of the important ones. The most effective operators in any competitive environment, from historical courts to modern boardrooms, mastered this exact discipline. They maintained warm, cordial, even generous relationships with nearly everyone, while reserving their deepest confidence for one or two people whose loyalty had been proven over years, never publicly announced, never performed for an audience. There is an old truth from the world of strategy, repeated across military history, chess, business, and political maneuvering, that applies with equal force to ordinary daily life. The side that moves in silence controls the tempo of the entire game. Most people don't think of their lives as a game of tempo. But every negotiation, every career decision, every conflict with a rival or difficult colleague, every subtle competition for position, all of it runs on tempo, on timing, on who acts and who merely reacts. And the person who reveals their next move before making it has, without realizing it, handed the tempo entirely to the other side. Think about what actually happens when you tell someone, a coworker, a friend, a rival, even a family member, exactly what you're planning to do next. You believe you're being transparent, perhaps even strategic, testing the waters, gauging reactions. But what you've actually done is give the other party something priceless. Time to prepare a counter before you've even acted. If you tell a difficult colleague, I'm going to bring this issue up with our manager next week, you have just given them an entire week to build their own narrative first, to soften the manager's perception, to preemptively frame the situation in their favor, all before you've said a single word. Your honesty became their head start. If you tell a competitor, even casually, which market you're planning to enter next, which client you're planning to pursue, which strategy you're planning to deploy, you have handed them the one thing that would have taken them significant effort and risk to discover on their own, your direction. Now they can simply move faster than you, using the very language you gave them, arriving at your intended destination before you do. Even in personal conflicts, a disagreement with a friend, a difficult conversation you're planning to have with a partner, announcing your intended approach in advance to a third party, who may intentionally or not relay it, removes your single greatest advantage, the element of surprise, which is not about deception, but about controlling the moment when a difficult truth is finally spoken, rather than having that moment stolen from you and delivered on someone else's terms. This is why every serious strategist throughout history operated by a simple, almost silent rule: act, then explain, never explain, then act. The explanation, when it comes after the fact, when the outcome is already secured and can no longer be interfered with. Before that point, the plan exists only in the mind of the person who built it, invisible, unassailable, because there is nothing yet for anyone else to react to. There's a deeper psychological reason this works so powerfully. Human beings by nature respond to uncertainty with hesitation and to certainty with confidence. When your next move is unknown, the people around you, whether allies, rivals, or neutral parties, are forced into a state of mild uncertainty about how to position themselves. This uncertainty, uncomfortable as it may be for them, works entirely in your favor. It keeps them cautious, keeps them respectful, keeps them from acting against you, simply because they don't yet know what they'd be reacting to. The moment you remove that uncertainty by announcing your plan, you remove their hesitation along with it. Now they know exactly what they're dealing with, and confident, prepared opposition is infinitely more dangerous than uncertain, cautious opposition. This principle extends even to your goals and successes. The temptation to share a plan while it's still forming, a new project, a bold decision, an ambitious pivot, comes from a very human desire for validation, for encouragement, for the comfort of not carrying an idea alone. But an idea shared too early is an idea exposed to doubt, to unsolicited opinions, to the subtle discouragement of people who, consciously or not, are more comfortable with you staying exactly where you currently are. Let your plan mature in silence. Let it survive its own uncertain middle stages without an audience watching, judging, or, worse, attempting to talk you out of it before you've even had the chance to test whether it works. Reveal it only when it is already in motion, already producing results that speak more persuasively than any explanation ever could. This is not manipulation. This is simply understanding a mechanical truth about how influence and timing actually operate. Information given too early is not honesty. It is a resource handed for free to whoever benefits most from knowing it before you've finished using it yourself. There is a strange, almost universal instinct in people who are talented or knowledgeable. The instinct to prove it fully immediately to anyone who might be watching. It feels good to demonstrate mastery. It feels validating to show exactly how much you know, exactly how capable you are. But this instinct, left unchecked, is one of the most quietly self-defeating habits a person can develop. Here is the principle. The moment people know the full extent of your capability, they stop being curious about you, and they start calculating how to use, limit, or replace you. Consider the workplace first, where this plays out constantly. The employee who reveals every skill, every shortcut, every piece of specialized knowledge immediately and generously often finds themselves, over time, exactly as replaceable as the information they gave away. Management doesn't reward the person who has made themselves fully transparent and fully understood. They optimize around them, sometimes without even realizing that's what they're doing. Meanwhile, the employee who reveals capability gradually, strategically, in proportion to what's actually needed, remains an object of ongoing interest, ongoing negotiation, ongoing necessity, because there is always more they haven't yet shown. This is not about being unhelpful or withholding effort. It's about understanding the difference between applying your full capability, which you should always do, and narrating your full capability, which you should almost never do. Do the excellent work. Let the results speak. But resist the urge to explain, in exhaustive detail, exactly how much more you know, exactly how many other skills you're holding in reserve, exactly how replaceable your entire depth of expertise would be to reproduce. There's a second danger, subtler than the first. When you reveal the full extent of your knowledge, you also reveal the full extent of your limits. Full transparency about what you know is, by definition, full transparency about the exact edge where your knowledge ends. And once someone knows precisely where that edge is, they know precisely where they can outmaneuver you, challenge you, or expose a gap you'd rather have kept quiet until you'd closed it